Today's video is going to be a short one, an actual short one. The topic I want to talk about is something I became aware of very recently, and there's not a ton to say about it, but I did want to talk about it because I think it's an important insight into something that I missed or that I didn't look out for as a person that already focuses on being fit in a very holistic, sort of all factors, all aspects included kind of way. As I thought about this topic, I realized that other people who are less balanced, who are less well rounded already when it comes to their fitness, to the way they train, fall into this trap more easily or more significantly. And so it might be important to talk about. Now, this was a very long-winded intro. What the fuck am I on about? What am I getting at? I just went for a run. That's why I'm sitting here in my robe with wet hair. I just took a shower right after. I had intended to run more regularly, or run at all, actually, because I haven't run in a long time. I'd been planning to do that this week, maybe next week, but I actually did it very spontaneously today after doing the first couple of exercises of my strength workout. And I just quit the workout and went outside and went for a run. And it wasn't a super long run or anything. Decent tempo, it was okay, but nothing special. But I felt in that moment, after finishing the exercises for my primary muscle group, for my focus for the day, that instead of doing extra sets, doing the rest of the workout, all of these exercises for smaller muscle groups, what I really should be doing is working on my endurance. Because the truth is, I've been noticing for the last week or two, last couple of days certainly, that I'm struggling endurance-wise on some of the sets, some of the exercises I do. If we're talking exercises that are more compound style movements that engage a lot of muscles, a large percentage of the body, if you will, I've caught myself being pretty out of breath on several occasions. And I will say that my style of progression allows for some fairly high rep ranges on exercises like pull-ups, squats. I like to go into ranges that some people who train for hypertrophy or especially for strength wouldn't really go into. They would prefer to up the weight and not go as high. Now, I like me some higher rep ranges, and I like to kind of progress through it. I do like to up the weight and start with a lower rep range every now and then. But generally speaking, I think it is a part of fitness to be able to operate in those higher rep ranges. However, as I said, more and more often, I have been catching myself being very out of breath after 14, 15 pull-ups or something like that. Or even when I'm not super out of breath, I just feel like the blood is pumping. Like my body really has to work to do those reps. And I'm not talking the muscles. I'm not talking strength-wise necessarily. And that's not the way it should be. And I don't take super long breaks between sets, mind you, compared to what other people do on their strength work, on their hypertrophy work, whatever you want to call it, resistance training in general. I talked about this in previous videos where I don't have super short breaks on the workout regime I'm currently on, but I do take like maybe a little more than 2-minute breaks between sets, generally speaking, which is comparatively short. I know people who take like 4 or 5 minutes in between sets. But I wasn't this out of breath in the past. And even though some of the rep ranges have gotten higher on some of these exercises, the fact remains that my endurance has gotten worse. I cannot deny that fact. And I think I've been kind of avoiding it for a while because, generally speaking, I have a lot of things to do. And I was really enjoying the kind of fairly consistent, albeit slow, progress I was making on my resistance training. Doing that just for 2 hours, 3 hours, cool. I got the rest of the day to work. I do my training at home. Doesn't take a lot of time. It's not a huge hassle. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 hours is a substantial amount of time, but I don't have to go anywhere. Like mentally, it's not much of an activity that is super removed from the rest of my work that I do throughout the day. And endurance training was just not a part of my sort of comfortable lifestyle. And I think comfortable is the key word here. I had gotten comfortable with a lifestyle that doesn't include enough endurance training, endurance activity of some kind. And the reason why is because I never used to do a lot of cardio specifically. Rather, I used to do parkour, for instance, several times a week. I used to walk a ton. And I still walk more than most people, I would say. But that's another thing I had to be kind of honest with myself about. I've been spending a lot of time inside. And the reason why is it's actually not a bad reason. And that's maybe interesting as well. I would say, generally speaking, I spend less time on unnecessary distractions and I spend more time just working on my stuff, on projects, on things that are important to me. So the time I spend inside, the extra time I spend inside, if you will, is not really a negative development, generally speaking. However, it has led to me walking around less. Just the fact that I'm out and about less means I'm doing less cardio because I used to walk everywhere. And I still, generally speaking, do, but I just go less places. Or I go places where my day is I spend a lot more time working, and then I have to get somewhere that's very far away very quickly. So I don't really have the time to walk there. I take public transport for long distances more. Short distances, I still walk, but there are not a ton of places I actually go that are nearby. At least not often. So all that is to say, my lifestyle didn't really used to include more cardio training. It's just that the things that were not training were more cardio intensive. I did more endurance type exercises, or not exercises, activities, just day-to-day activities that trained my cardiovascular system without me actually going for a run or walking on a treadmill or what have you. And as I have gotten more productive, as my lifestyle has changed in many ways, again, for the better, I was kind of too comfortable. And I wouldn't necessarily say physically, because I'm not really a lazy person physically. Like, I enjoy doing hard work. If it's not boring per se, if there's a challenge involved, if I can make it a game or something that challenges me in some way, I like going to the fucking limit and really pushing myself physically. So I'm not necessarily talking about physical comfort here so much as I am talking about mental comfort. I was mentally and especially subconsciously too comfortable with my kind of routine, with my lifestyle that works, that is kind of a running system. I'm progressing in terms of strength. I'm growing muscle. I'm getting more mobile, right? I'm working on my mobility a lot. I've been doing a lot of stretching, things like that. So there are clear markers that are improving. I'm doing more work. So in the sort of productivity space, if we're talking about writing, things of that nature, I'm also making progress. And I got kind of comfortable with this routine, with this, not a rut necessarily, but with this lifestyle that I was in, with this running system. And subconsciously, I think I avoided thinking about the topic of endurance too much because it wasn't significantly limiting me. My endurance, by the way, is not terrible. It's terrible for my standards, my personal standards. I probably still have better endurance than most like average people. But for someone who considers himself to be fit, my endurance is shit. You have to be honest with yourself on this kind of stuff. And, I'm not saying this to be clear, as I'm just telling you, I was avoiding this topic. So I'm not telling you this in a preachy sort of manner. I'm kind of also talking to myself here. You have to be honest about this stuff. Pushing it away, pushing it kind of to the back of your mind, maybe I'll get into running at some point in the future, or we'll see, I might go hiking with my friends again in like 5 years or something. It doesn't have to be endurance training, by the way. And that's something I thought about when I started thinking about this topic more. For some people, it's strength. There are a lot of people who just run, for instance, who just do cardio, which is also a shit habit. Not doing cardio. Cardio is a great habit, but just doing cardio and kind of avoiding resistance training is a terrible mentality. Because resistance training has tons of benefits, and just doing cardio is not going to make you fit. It's not going to turn you into a fit person. The same way, by the way, just lifting weights is also not going to turn you into an actual fit person. You should do both. And you should also stretch. And you should also work on your hand-eye coordination, etc. All of these things influence your fitness, your actual physical prowess, your capability. And I think a lot of people try to sort of min-max, try to sort of reduce their training to the most essential parts. But what generally happens with most things that you try to reduce to their most essential parts is that they end up not really containing the substance that they should contain. If you look at something like powerlifting, powerlifters talk about, just do the big three. That's going to give you most of your gains when it comes to like strength and size. No. First of all, as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm not going to go into this topic too deeply. They don't build strength or size on a lot of key muscle groups. But second of all, what is this mentality? Why are you trying to do like a discount version of proper training? Because isn't doing lots of different things actually more fun? And for me personally, I think the reason I didn't want to leave this routine is because things felt like they were going well. And when things seem to go kind of well, maybe they could be going better. But you don't really want to endanger what you have right now, the gains you're making, the progress you're making, to try something different. And, you shouldn't change a running system. You shouldn't change stuff just for the sake of changing stuff. Maybe something could be better. Let's change this great system, this routine that is incredible, that works well for me, that does all these different things. Let's just change it up to see if maybe something else could be better. I don't think that's something you should do. That's like progressivism taken to the max. But I also think you can get lost in the opposite, in a conservative mindset taken to the max. And I think that is something that can happen to me, where I like consistency. I like working hard. I like having a concept and, just pushing through and going hard on that. And having to change that concept while I'm actually still doing it. I love setting up concepts when I've run into a wall and I'm not actually working out, or I'm not actually working on a project, or whatever it may be. I love sitting down in my free time, quote unquote, and working on concepts and setting up concepts for stuff. But I don't really like to change the concept once I've gotten started and things are actually going well. And I think that's a kind of trap you can fall into, especially if you're doing a specific sport. Because again, I'm already doing a very sort of well-rounded type of fitness training. If you're doing something like powerlifting specifically, or hypertrophy focused training, or something of that nature, Olympic weightlifting, whatever it may be, if you're doing a specific sport, I think it's much easier even to fall into the trap of just following that sport. And I think a lot of people actually stay within the sort of restrictive frame of their sport, despite not actually being that serious about the sport as a sport. Like, do you actually give a shit about powerlifting on like a high competitive level? Do you want to compete in powerlifting and like win stuff? Most people don't, I think. Most people do powerlifting because they want to be strong, and maybe also kind of secretly because they actually want to be big. And they're just coping and saying that powerlifting is kind of sort of going to give them that. If you look at bodybuilding, most people who do bodybuilding style training, they don't want to be bodybuilders, as in like dudes who hop on stage in weird Nutella tans and pose and grin like they're in a fucking toothpaste advertisement. Most people don't want to do that. Most people who train like bodybuilders, who train bodybuilding style, just want to be big or strong, jacked, whatever it may be. They just want to look cool or be in good shape in terms of their capabilities. And I think the same thing goes for a lot of these training philosophies / sports. A lot of people who pick up running and do this as a regular habit, they want to be fit. They actually run because they want to be fit. They want to be toned. They want to be, what have you. All that is to say, I had to make a clean cut for myself. It took me actually quitting halfway through my workout and saying, fuck this. I've done the work I need to maintain my muscle for today. I'm not going to spend the next hour, 1.5 hours doing the rest of these exercises. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go on a run right now. And after that, I came back up here. I did some burpees because, to be honest, I was kind of out of breath after the run. But after the way back home, I came up here. I was like, I can do more. I should do more. I can do more, so let's do more. And I did some burpees on top of the fucking run. And sometimes you need that kind of cut. And again, this video is not me preaching. This video is sort of 50% me talking to myself here. But I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing this kind of thing. If you've been powerlifting for years, and the truth is you actually want to be a strong person, not just in a powerlifting context, but an actual strong person. And the truth is, deep down in here, you're actually kind of jealous of those calisthenics guys. You see them doing some fucking muscle ups or some cool shit, and you're like, that shit is actually cool. And also that motherfucker looks way better than I do. His physique is like, he's out of a fucking anime. He should be in the next Marvel movie. If you're thinking that deep down, but you kind of sort of don't want to admit it to yourself, you don't want to be honest with yourself, you don't want to say that shit, you don't want to engage with those thoughts because you're thinking, I've been doing powerlifting for years. If I'm going to admit this now, it's like I've been wasting my time. Maybe you also need a clean cut like this. If you've been doing just bodybuilding style training, if you've been working your ass off to get big, get swole, and your endurance is kind of ass, you're really impressed by a fucking David Goggins who runs for fucking hours, like he's, mentally challenged, just fucking debilitated. He can't stop. Maybe you need to run. Maybe you just need to pick up running. Or maybe it's climbing. Or whatever the fuck. Long story short, let's get this video to a close. Really consider what your goals are with your fitness. Try to push away all the nonsense, all the cope that you've built up over the years. What do you actually want? What do you actually aspire to? Who impresses you? What do you respect physically? In the realm of physical capability, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And then become that person. Step on the road that is actually going to take you there. Instead of sticking to the same thing that's been working for you just because it's been kind of sort of working for you, even though, it's actually not going to take you where you might want to go. Okay, that's going to be it. If you enjoyed this fucking talk is every single fucking time, man. I said this was going to be a short talk. I actually had some more shit to say. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and leave a like. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, you want to maybe share your experience with a similar sort of realization like the one I had, down in the comments. Go ahead and, leave a comment. And if you want to see more of my videos in the future, if you want to follow me on my journey of bulking on carnivore and now, picking up cardio training. I'm actually going to go ahead and run every single day from now on, and I'm going to up the amount of time I am running for probably every week. We'll see. I'll have like a consistent progression, and I'll reduce my physical training, my resistance training rather. Obviously, running is also physical training, to a sort of maintenance level. I'll essentially do the exercises for the focus muscle group each day, but then I'll kind of see how much time I have in regards to the other stuff. So the bonus sets, the bonus exercises that I do each day. So I'm going to be doing about somewhere between a third and maybe half the amount of volume, maybe a little bit more than 50%, we'll see, that I've been doing so far. And I'm going to use that extra time for cardio. Yeah, long story short, where the fuck was I? If you want to follow me on that journey, if you're interested in philosophy, health, training, any of those things, go ahead and subscribe and activate the notification bell if you do want notifications. And I'm going to see you in the next one. Until then, see you around.